Taking America into a recession, is it worth it? And do Americans back that up?
The fake news, of which many of you are members, is trying to convince the public to have a recession. Let's have a recession. The United States is doing phenomenally well. But one thing I have to do is economically take on China, because China has been ripping us off for many years. President Clinton, President Bush, and President Obama and others should have done this long before me. My life would be much easier, although I enjoy doing it, but my life would be much easier if I just said, let China continue to rip off the United States, all right? It'd be much easier, but I can't do that. We are winning against China. They've lost 2.5 million jobs in a very short period of time. They want to make a deal. It's got to be a deal that's good for the United States. When they want to make a deal, probably we will make a deal, but if I didn't do the worst year in 27 years, but I think it was actually 52 or 54 years, it was the worst year they've had in a half a century. And that's because of me. And I'm not proud of that, but you know what? They want to negotiate. And Sleepy Joe doesn't have a clue. Sleepy Joe said, oh, China's wonderful. Well, China is wonderful for China, but I'm wonderful for the USA.
Do you believe in the second coming of God?
Well, we'll meet it sometime, but the Prime Minister used a terrible word when describing something that we've been talking about for years with our country. President Truman said, what about Greenland? And he talked about it very openly, and it was a big deal at the time. And I brought it up again, and it was discussed many other times. And I thought it was not a nice statement, the way she blew me off, because she's blowing off the United States. And we've done a lot for Denmark. We've done a lot. I know Denmark well. I have many friends from Denmark. I have many people from Denmark that live in the United States. And we treat countries with respect.
They served with us in Afghanistan.
Treat the United States that way by saying, what an absurd, she said, absurd. That's not the right word to use.
Didn't they serve with us in Afghanistan, sir? They served with us.
Why is it acceptable to look up children indefinitely? Louder. Why is it acceptable to look up children indefinitely, which is what the result would be of rolling? Well, if you remember, President Obama had separation. President Obama built the cells. He built the cages that you people always talk about and attribute them to me. President Obama in 2014 built those cages, and you were very embarrassed when the New York Times, as usual, and others put a picture of a cage and they said how bad Trump was, only to find out that it was President Obama that built those cages. So President Obama had separation. I'm the one that brought them together. This new rule will do even more to bring them together. But it was President Obama that had the separation.
How worried are you about the long-term traumatic effects that children might face if they're detained indefinitely because wars end?
Well, we're being very strong on the border. You see the numbers are way, way down. I want to thank Mexico for that. The United States could make your question, could make that problem go away very easily if the Democrats would meet and we could fix the loopholes and asylum, which is what you're talking about to an extent. But let me just tell you, very much I have the children on my mind. It bothers me very greatly. People make this horrible 2,000-mile journey. One of the things that will happen when they realize the borders are closing, the wall is being built. We're building tremendous numbers of miles of wall right now in different locations. It all comes together like a beautiful puzzle. But one of the things that's happening when they see you can't get into the United States, or when they see if they do get in the United States, they will be brought back to their country. It won't matter if they get in or not, because we're doing that. They won't come, and many people will be saved, and many women's lives will not be destroyed and ruined.
Joe Biden, sir, you like to attack Joe Biden's staff?
Will we see a payroll tax cut, which is aimed at
I'm not looking at a tax cut now. We don't need it. We have a strong economy. Certainly a payroll tax cut. President Obama did that in order to artificially jack up the economy. President Obama had zero interest rates. I don't have zero interest. I have real interest rates, and despite that, I have a strong economy. President Obama did 2 payroll tax cuts, And despite that, I have a much stronger economy. And if you look at my numbers from November 9th, you look at them, November 9th to present, the stock market is up over 50%.
But you Joe Biden's staff. They like to attack Joe Biden for his staff.
This guy is the most biased reporter, NBC. You know, I made a lot of money for NBC with The Apprentice, and I used to like them, but they are the most biased. Peter is such a bias. You should be able to ask a question, same question in a better way. You are so obviously biased, and that's why the public has no confidence in the media. Go ahead, give me. Go ahead. Joe Biden doesn't have it. Let me just tell you about Joe Biden. Joe Biden doesn't have it.
You said that the mass shooting happened in Toledo when it happened in Dayton. So is that fair game?
Joe Biden doesn't have it. Go ahead.
Is that fair game, sir, for you?
What did you think about the leak that the New York Times complaining about a racist narrative?
Well, I think the New York Times now has totally lost credibility. They've given up on the Russian collusion delusion, and now what they're doing is they're trying the racist deal, and that's not going to work because I am the least racist person ever to serve in office, okay? I am the least racist person. But the New York Times, they're trying everything they can. It is a totally dishonest newspaper. It's a paper that really has lost tremendous credibility. And let me tell you, in 6 years, or maybe 10 or maybe 14, right? In 6 years, when I'm not here, the New York Times goes out of business very quickly. And you know who else goes out? Like NBC News. NBC News has less credibility, in my opinion, with guys like you than CNN. I think CNN has more credibility than NBC News.
A couple additional questions. Why should you be trusted?
You hear what I said? I said you have more credibility than this guy. Go ahead. And that's not saying much. Because I don't think you know what? You know why? Because I don't think you have very much credibility. But I will tell you this. NBC, I think, has less credibility than CNN. That's not saying much, but that's the way.
Sir, why should you be trusted despite a stronger background check?
You're focused on mental health issues.
Yeah.
With gun control.
Mental health, right?
But other countries have similar levels of mental illness, but not the same gun violence problem. And you really deny the incredible access to guns in the United States.
There are many, many things in play. People are talking about videos. People are talking about lots of different things. But we do have a way of bringing what we already have, because we have many, many, as you know, we have many, many people that are unable to buy guns right now. Many people are unable to buy guns. We have background checks, but there are loopholes in the background checks, and that's what I spoke to the NRA about yesterday. They want to get rid of the loopholes as well as I do. At the same time, I don't want to take away people's Second Amendment rights. I don't want to take away the Constitution having to do with gun ownership. And you know, we can't let that slope go so easy that we're talking about background checks, that all of a sudden we're talking about let's take everybody's gun away. People need weapons, unfortunately, for protection.
But so that word slope, that is an NRA talking point.
It's a Trump talking point.
You originally said that you
You
didn't
approve
believe it.
one thing, then another thing, then another thing, then all of a sudden you're on that slope, and all of a sudden nobody has any legal protection. We have a Second Amendment.
Disagree with that.
On operations that you
Disagree with that.
We have a Second Amendment, and our Second Amendment will remain strong. Go ahead. Jeff, go ahead.
Are you concerned about the potential re-emergence of ISIS in Afghanistan, and is that affecting your decision-making at all?
Well, you know, at a certain point, Russia, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Turkey, they're going to have to fight their battles too, okay? We wiped out the caliphate 100%. I did it in record time. But at a certain point, all of these other countries where ISIS is around, they've been decimated, by the way, badly decimated. But all of these countries are going to have to fight them. Because do we want to stay there for another 19 years? I don't think so. So at a certain point, other countries, and that includes Russia, and it includes Iran, and Turkey, and Iraq, and Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and India. Look, India's right there. They're not fighting it, we're fighting it. Pakistan is right next door. They're fighting it. Very little. Very, very little. It's not fair. The United States was 7,000 miles away. We have decimated ISIS. You haven't been hearing much about ISIS. And we took the caliphate, 100%. When I took it at 98, I said, all right, maybe we go home now. Let these other countries handle it. Everyone went crazy. They said, do 100%. They said it was going to take a year. It took me a month, and they're gone. The caliphate is gone. And by the way, we're holding thousands of ISIS fighters right now. And Europe has to take them. And if Europe doesn't take them, I'll have no choice but to release them into the countries from which they came, which is Germany and France and other places. Because we beat them. We captured them. We've got thousands of them. And now, as usual, our allies say, oh no, we don't want them, even though they came from France and Germany and other places. So we're going to tell them, and we've already told them, take these prisoners that we've captured, because the United States is not going to put them in Guantanamo for the next 50 years and pay for it.
What's your deadline?
Sir, why should Americans...
It's moving along my deadline.
Sir,
They
why
know.
should Americans be allowed to buy this?
Mr. President, are you talking to victims of mass shooting to talk to them, ask
I
them
did.
what they want?
I went to the
What are you hearing
hospitals.
from them on what
I
they
will
want
tell
from
you
them?
this. I went to the hospitals. It was totally falsely reported. There were beautiful, beautiful, very sad, horrible moments, but they were beautiful moments in the sense that these people, the families, and also the people that were so badly injured that I was with, they love our country.
But what do they
And
want in terms of
frankly,
gun laws?
you want to know the truth? They love their president.
What do
And
they want
nobody
for
wrote
gun
that.
laws?
Nobody wrote that because you didn't write the truth. New York Times doesn't like to write the truth.
Sir,
But they totally love our country, and they do love our president. So when I went to Dayton, and when I went to El Paso, and I went into those hospitals, the love for me, and me maybe as a representative of the country, but for me, and my love for them was unparalleled. These are incredible people. But if you read the papers, it was like nobody would meet with me. Not only did they meet with me, they were pouring out of the rooms. The doctors were coming out of the operating rooms. There were hundreds and hundreds of people all over the floor. You couldn't even walk on it. So, there's a lot to happen. The people in Dayton, let me just explain. People in Dayton, people of El Paso, these are incredible people. And those victims and the survivors and the families, I love those people.
Sir, what do you say to those critics? What do you say to those critics? Sir, the thumbs up of the migrant style, what do you say to those critics who attack that?
I've looked at indexing for a long time. It's not something I love. I think it's probably better for the high-income people, and I'm not looking to do that. I want to do for the workers. I'm looking to do for middle-income people. I think indexing. Now, I'd have to get a letter from the Attorney General or from the Justice Department, which I think I might be able to get. Otherwise, I'd have to go through Congress. But I'm not looking at doing indexing, and I haven't been seriously looking at it. But certainly, it is an option if I wanted to. We have such a strong economy. If the Fed did what they were supposed to do, they'd drop interest rates by 100 basis points. They maybe would do not only not tightening, but they'd do some loosening or leave it alone, do nothing. But they drop interest rates by 100 basis points or more. Nobody would be able to compete with the United States. Right now, the Fed is tying our hands because we're paying interest rates, and Germany and other countries that aren't like us are not. It should be the other way around, in a sense. But why should they be paying no interest rates and even have an incentive beyond that, and we're paying interest rates? The Fed has missed the call for a long time.
What do you say to the critics who attack you for that? Mr. President, what do you say to the critics who attack you for that? Doing any tax cuts at all at this time?
I think we have a very strong economy. I just don't see any reason to. I think the Fed has been very late and very early. They were very early to raise, and they're very, very late to cut, but the Fed can do the whole thing. Yesterday, we had the strongest dollar in the history of our country. Yesterday, we had the strongest dollar in the history of our country. Now, in one way, I'm honored by that, But in another way, it makes it much harder to export goods, you understand. So in two ways. One, I love it, but in another way, I don't like it because it's much harder to compete. But we had literally the strongest dollar in the history of our country. Say it. We're looking at that very seriously, birthright citizenship, where you have a baby in our land, you walk over the border, have a baby, congratulations, the baby's now a U.S. citizen. We're looking at it very, very seriously. I don't know how you found that out, but that's very good. We are looking at birthright citizenship very seriously. It's frankly ridiculous. Do I what?
Unlimited detention of migrant minors.
I am the one that kept the families together. Okay? You remember that, right? Just remember I said it. And now it gets even better. President Obama and others brought the families apart. But I'm the one that kept the families together. With what we're doing now, we'll do even more of that, but it'll make it almost impossible for people to come into our country illegally. Plus, we're building large sections of the wall. I won the lawsuit 2 weeks ago in the Supreme Court. We're building large sections of wall, and lots of other things are happening.
What about Tim Cook of Apple, sir? You seem to have a good relationship with Tim Cook. You seem to have a good relationship with Tim Cook of Apple.
I do.
Why more so with him than with other tech executives?
Oh, I have with everybody, but he's the one that calls me. You know why? That's why he's a great executive. Because he calls me, and others don't. Others go out and hire very expensive consultants, and Tim Cook calls Donald Trump directly. Pretty good. And I would take their call too. But the only one that calls me is Tim Cook. He calls me whenever there's a problem. He'll call. Now the problem was that Samsung, a competitor, good competitor, wouldn't be paying tariffs, and Tim Cook would. I got to help him out short term with that problem because it's a great American company. Samsung is in South Korea. Not fair that Samsung isn't hit while he's hit, right?